Welcome to another day of Bhagavad Gita Sadhana. Atmadarshan or Laura, I'm so glad you're here. We're continuing to explore what is your path in yoga, in life. And the Gita delineates 18 paths of yoga. And we're going to be working with the one described in chapter 16 today. All right, once the noise gets out, once we are free of the noise, and actually that's what chapter 16 is about, is freedom, choosing freedom. Now, chapter 16 has many verses in it that help to elucidate the key theme. But I think chapter 16, which is titled, I love this title, The Yoga of Discerning Between the Divine and the Demonic, can really be summed up in one verse. And to remind you, we talked about this many videos ago, but demonic from an Eastern point of view means something different than what we might assume, having been brought up in a Western culture with a lot of Judeo-Christian values. Actually, probably mostly Christian values. There are really no direct words to translate the idea of deva, which is often translated as gods, but that's not really it, or demons. Demons, for example, in a lot of Eastern literature from the Indian subcontinent, they can be good. Some of them are good, and some of them do yoga and become wonderful beings. There's one, especially Prahlad, who was acclaimed as just one of the most loving, devoted beings to ever have existed. And we might not relate to that. Krishna defines divine versus demonic very clearly in this verse, and it can help us get a grasp. It can help those of us who feel like I am too busy for any kind of yoga. In this yoga, every moment you can be aware of it, you make a choice. That's it. So you can do this anytime. You don't have to carve out hours a day on a mat. Anytime you become aware, wait a minute, I have a choice, and then the choice you make defines this kind of yoga. Okay? So I'm going to be reading from chapter 16, verse 5. I'm doing my own translation, which is lyrical and poetic, so that you get the idea of just, I'm going to talk about that in a moment, just how rhythmic this poem is. The divine state leads to freedom. The demonic is said to lead to bondage. Grieve not, Pandu's son, for you were born to the divine. Anything divine is free, is liberated. And anything that is not free is demonic. So there's a couple of new, perhaps, definitions for you. And I find this fun here because sometimes what we see as binding us actually leads to freedom. So that's the idea of this discernment. We have to develop this discernment. For example, writing or translating something of the length of the Gita in a poetic meter can seem very binding. You have to make the words fit and flow. But it's also liberating because singing is so liberating rather than like, oh, the dry prose. And actually it helps us memorize it better or remember key lines, just like songs, because they have the rhythm and the rhyme often. We can remember song lyrics much better than we can remember. Gosh, I remember having to memorize Shakespeare, and even though that's rhythmic, we didn't memorize it in the rhythm. It was just memorize these swaths of Shakespeare. So we have to discern because, for example, this sadhana you could see is, it binds me. I've committed every day for a year to doing the same thing, but it's also freeing me. Is this sadhana divine or demonic? That's where the discernment comes in. And every day in your life, you can look at whatever situation you are in and go, is this leading me to freedom or to bondage? If you want to stay bound, you choose bound. But the idea of the demonic is then perhaps your worst qualities come out, right? Or if you choose freedom, then your divine qualities come out. The divine rhythm of the poem comes out with the constraint of the rhythm, for example. So I invite you today to just try that. Whatever situation you're in, can you discern what's the choice to make that makes you feel free and therefore more divine, or the choice that makes you feel bound and therefore more demonic? I have to say this sadhana makes me feel more divine. So I'm discerning that. The mudra we'll use in the meditation is vittam mudra. It's for free flow, because when we bind ourselves with our decisions, our physical body reflects that. We'll be tight in certain areas. Okay, we bind ourselves to a desk job for 8 hours a day. And we're bound up like that, and yoga frees us. So this mudra can help with free flow of energy. Vittam, you cup the hands and you can hold them down in front of your belly, either with the fingers down or out. Depends what feels good. I like fingers not all the way down, but kind of down. And then when you breathe and inhale, feel like you're inhaling into your belly and let the hands expand. And when you exhale, the belly contracts, the hands come in. Now, for me personally, as I do this, I feel free of conscious movement after a while. The hands just move themselves. You may experience that, you may not. This is a really good test of how blocked your energy might be. Okay, if you can't get that sense, you might be a little blocked in your energy. If you can get that sense, you're probably freer. Let's try our pose and then we will engage Vittam Mudra. Hello. Switch. Preparing for our contemplation. You can do the Vittam Mudra if you wish, or you can contemplate what you're choosing in this very moment. Is it ultimately freeing you or binding you? That discernment, so important. All right, there we go. Foot's in place. Let's do it. Welcome back. How was that? This application of divine and demonic does not only apply to ourselves, but we apply it to others. Whenever we limit somebody in our minds because of prejudices, for example, or preconceived ideas, they become more demonic, more to be feared, or to be mistrusted. And when we can free them from the limitations of our own cognitive processes, they also become more divine. For today's dedication, I invite you to think of someone that you have imprisoned somehow with your mind, with your ideas, preconceived knowledge. Notice if you can free them, because every being out there represents a part of you in here. I wish you a wonderful day of perhaps working with this, and may you be free. Until next time.